Good morning, everybody. It is kind of foggy and cold out this morning, but we have a meeting with the Ben guy and the electrician. They're gonna come out and we're gonna discuss everything we're gonna need for this new Ben site. I like these guys already because they were here when they said they were gonna be here.
You know, so we're gonna have these two big bends. There's this is Cole's hopper Ben that made it through the storm, and his leg and tower that made it through the storm. We're gonna add another leg in there. Then his pit, overhead load out, move his dryer out there.
Oh, nothing like being late.
So start the leg first, then start this pit, then start this one last, so we don't plug anything.
Right, everything will be timed on and timed off.
Right.
Oh, good, they're finally leaving. That was a pretty good meeting. I didn't really understand a whole lot of what was going on because electrician stuff is not really my forte, but basically what we did is we took the future plans for the Ben site and then kind of figured out what electrical stuff we're gonna need for that. Electricians and power companies are known for being a little slow, so I wanted to get on the ball on this early so that way we have everything in place, and then when we're ready to go, we're ready to go. Not waiting to get permits passed and get everything figured out, and then all of a sudden we have a 3-month back order on an item. I'm not interested in that. If all goes well, the new Ben site is going to be up and fully operational sometime this spring. So Dad and I stopped out here where the Ben site's gonna be, and we're just kind of overlooking the layout of the ground. We're gonna need to get a bulldozer in here pretty soon to get this spot leveled off. Essentially, the Ben site's gonna go from where Dad's sitting in the truck all the way down to that little rake sitting out in the field. So we need to find the lowest area, and then that's gonna be our base reference point, and then we're gonna have to take the bulldozer and get everything down to that level. So this spot here, it looks relatively flat, but I wouldn't be surprised if we had to take off maybe 4 feet or so here in the middle of this. We need everything to be flat so that way everything lines up and then we don't have bends that are staggered in heights compared to each other. So it's kind of exciting to get all this stuff planned out. We could be constructing stuff in 60 days, so it's gonna be here before we know it. But before we can do anything, we need to go to our Farm Service Agency office and get approved for the site, because if we do any work before their approval, they can just pull the plug and not give us a loan.
And that would be bad.
Oh, and by the way, in case you're wondering why our snow is all brown, the lime people came out and they spread lime on the field. If we look really close, some areas are really dark and some areas are really light. And that's because they applied variable rate lime. So they took our soil samples and they found the areas that needed more lime and they put more lime on those, and the areas that didn't need as much didn't get as much. Yesterday I made a video talking about why we're not buying a farm that's touching one of our best farms, and I realized I didn't do a very good job. And I will say this, you guys had some awesome feedback, and it really put me in my place. And with the information I gave you, you guys were 100% right. It made me look pretty silly for turning that farm down. But I gave you oversimplified numbers that weren't the actual deal, so here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna break down some real numbers of how the financials work here on the farm, and then we're gonna go through a few of your guys' comments, and we're gonna read some suggestions you have. And then I'm basically just gonna tell you why we decided to do what we did with the new equipment that we've recently bought this year. So on the farm, we have 2 types of debt: short-term debt and long-term debt. Short-term debt, also known as current liabilities, is debt that is paid off within a year, and anything over a year is considered long-term. A current liability would be something like seed, fertilizer, and rent. But then long-term debt would be something like a Ben loan, a combine loan, or a mortgage on a farm. So here's where stuff gets pretty fun. It costs us $750 an acre to raise an acre of corn. So we have to sell that acre of corn for at least $750 to break even. So if we sell it for more than $750, we made money, and if we sell it for less than $750, we lost money. And since the average cash rent in my county is $250 an acre, $250 of that $750 goes right to rent. So this $250 an acre is a benchmark for if we decide to buy a farm or not. So the way we calculate if something cash flows is we look at our long-term debt, and then we take that total lump sum of long-term debt and we divide that by the amount of acres that we own. If that yearly payment comes out to $250 an acre or less, it cash flows. So if we add up the payments of the farms that we have mortgages on, our equipment loans, our old grain bin loans, and our new grain bin loans, that number divided by all of the acres that we own comes out to a number that's less than $250 an acre. And it's a number we can comfortably sit on. So now let's account for this new farm all by itself. If we were to buy this farm, the yearly payment for the acres we are getting would come out to $805 an acre. That's over 3 times what the cash rent price would be. So that means that this new farm would not cash flow by itself. We'd have to take other acres that are paid off to cover these new acres. So remember, at the moment, we're sitting well under $250 an acre on our long-term debt payments, but if we were to acquire this new land, it would put us really close to that $250 point. And then what that does is we essentially have no leftover money at the end of the year. It is all going to land. Now, if this were like a 3-year commitment, I wouldn't mind tightening my old belt up and going with it. But we're talking a 25-year mortgage. And since interest rates have dropped so much this year, we refinanced all of our other ground. So if anything were to happen, there's literally no wiggle room. Essentially, buying this farm would be like somebody making $50,000 a year, spending all $50,000 a year, and on top of that, they still need to put a new roof on their house and buy a new car. With long-term commitments, like a 25-year period of time, we want to be really conservative with our numbers because we don't know what the future is going to hold. Commodity prices could fall out. Other things could skyrocket, which would make our cost of production even more, which would cut into our profits. So we want to make things comfortable for us, and I don't want to be living off $5,000 a year for the next 25 years because that is the number one thing that chokes out successful businesses, is not having enough cash on hand. Having ample cash on hand to run a business is really important, and it's something that's really overlooked. We can't just go to our exact break-even dollar because if anything comes up at all, we don't have any extra finances to do it. And then you just get into the habit of borrowing for everything. And what do you do when you're at your borrowing limit? So when it comes to this farm, we have to take all the emotions out of it. Yes, it'd be super nice to have the farm that's touching our best farm. Like, it's great ground. But at the same time, we have to look at the dollars and we have to pencil things out to see if it really makes sense for us to do. Because if we were to buy this farm, it could end up tying our hands for other opportunities, say 5 years down the road. And it might seem like, oh, that farm will never come up for sale in our life again. We've seen it before, we'll probably see it again. And if not, there'll be other opportunities down the road. Well, Cole, if you run into any issues, you can just sell the ground. So here's the thing, it doesn't always work that way. And I'll give you a really good example. Daddy Cornstar started farming during the 1980s farm crisis. Now, if we look back to that time, land prices were going insane. And there was a lot of people who bought during that time, and then all of a sudden the floor fell out in the ag world, and there were a lot of farms that people couldn't afford, and that took a lot of farms down. So in the case of the first 80 that Dad bought, he paid $1,450 an acre for it, when 2 years prior to that, that farm sold to another neighbor for $4,000 an acre. Hey guys, please keep in mind that this is also a really, really simplified version of this. If I went into every little detail on all the factors, then we'd be here for a while. So now I hope that makes a lot better sense for you guys, but let's go through some of your guys' comments now, read a few of your suggestions, and then I'll break down why we didn't go that route. So the first comment is that I should take a look at the $1 million bin setup and delay that spend before someone else buys the farm. Here's the thing, the bin site cash flows. So that means nothing else is supporting the bin site. It's able to sustain itself on its own because we're already spending that money to the co-op anyhow. So the only difference is instead of paying the co-op, we're just paying ourselves. The bin site will be paid off in 6 years, and then we'll just have all that money coming into us and not going anywhere else. So on a standalone perspective, the bin site makes sense cash flow wise, but the farm doesn't. So the next comment is that we should buy it and rent it so that way we can have a constant cash flow, and then when we're in the plus, we can farm it ourselves. So that's a really nice suggestion, but if we were to farm it, we'd probably make anywhere from $50 to $100 an acre more than if we rented it, and the farm payment is $805 an acre. So if we were able to rent it for $250 an acre, there's a lot of difference there we gotta come up with out of pocket. It doesn't sustain itself. What you're forgetting is passing up on that farm is increase in value of land over time. Now that's a good point, but when we look at a farm purchase, we don't look at what the end value of the land is because we're never gonna sell it. So that number really doesn't matter to us. We're just looking at it from a pure cash flow perspective to see if we can afford it in our operation. For example, this shirt could be worth $1 million, but if I'm never gonna sell it, it doesn't really matter what it's worth. In the farming world, the only people who really care about net worth are bankers and the IRS. YouTube cash flow has to make up the difference for the lost cash flow on the new farm purchased. New Chevy truck, grain cart, combine, house porch, etc. It shows an improved cash flow. And you're not wrong about YouTube providing an improved cash flow, but the thing is, they're two separate businesses. The farm is the farm, and my YouTube channel is the YouTube channel. I don't want to get long-term debt associated with the YouTube channel because let's say 5 years down the road, something happens to YouTube. I don't want to have commitments that I can't make trying to bank on something else. So all these other things are short-term commitments, and we try to pay for stuff in cash if we can. And on the amounts that we do have to borrow, it's numbers that the farm can comfortably swing in a long-term scenario. Man, I would buy land and not buy a combine and tractor and planter. Land is more important than new farm equipment. You need land to farm and not have new farm equipment for 500 acres. So here's where farming gets a little tricky because we need equipment to farm, and we also have to keep expansion in mind when we make equipment purchases because we can't go from enough equipment to farm 1,000 acres to farming 3,000 acres overnight. And at the same time, older stuff can be more expensive too because we have to factor in opportunity cost of breakdowns, and we also have to factor in the cost of the breakdowns. If our yearly equipment bill is outweighing the cost of a payment on a new machine, it doesn't really make sense to keep running the older, less efficient machine that's slower. And that's kind of the point we were at. Then we also have to take into account opportunity costs. Take 2 years ago, for example, half of our crops got planted late, and that ended up costing over $100,000 in lost yield. Where if we would have had the new planter, then we would have made that extra money, and that would have paid for the planter in 1 year. And let's say we didn't buy the 340, the planter, and the combine, and we took that money and bought the farm with it. Cash flow wise, it still wouldn't really make much sense because it would only lower the payment by a couple dollars an acre. So the benefit that we're getting of having that equipment on the farm from a cash flow perspective makes more sense, and we make more money doing it that way than the savings that we would have on the new mortgage. So now I hope everybody has a little bit better understanding on why we made some of the decisions that we did. It stinks. We'd really like to buy the farm, but it just doesn't quite pencil for us. And guys, I would really appreciate feedback on these type of videos. They're not really a whole lot of work going on, but I really enjoy making financial ones like this and breaking down exactly how we do business because I want you guys to be able to benefit from it. Even if you're not a farmer, I hope it just gets some gears turning in your head on maybe some way you can do things different or how you can run things in your own business. One of the reasons why I made this channel is because I wanted to help people, and I feel by being able to show you guys some of the financial decisions that we're making and the business decisions that we're making, that's going to be able to help people. So we're going to be bringing forward a lot of stuff this year on that kind of thing, basically just how to make better decisions in business. And I'm gonna get really personal with you guys. I mean, this video, if you asked 100 farmers to give you the information that I just gave you now, you might get like 2 of them to give you half of it. So I'm making us be very vulnerable with you guys because I want you guys to be able to trust what we say. And I don't want you just to be sold out trusting in what Cole says. I want you to go look into it for yourself, but I wanna show you we're legitimate. And when I say something, I mean it. And I guess I don't really know any other way to prove that to you guys other than to be authentic and to be transparent. So that's what we're doing. Let me know what you guys think of these kind of videos. If you want to see more, I'll keep doing more. If you guys want to do different stuff, I can do different stuff. And if there's a specific topic you guys would like to see, let me know. I should be able to do my thing on it. All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you've sat through all of this number crunching and talking, well, you guys are the true fans, and I just want to let you guys know we really appreciate it. So thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed, don't forget to hit the thumbs up button. We'll see you in the next one.